tonight in this live stream, we have Wendy Rose Williams, who is an author. She's trained and learned regression healing, trained with Dr. Brian Weiss, using the many lives, many masters method and other experts for past life therapy, future life progression, and the life between live state or between live state. She is a certified spiritual teacher, Reiki energy healer, hypnotherapist, and speaker. I want to welcome Wendy to the show. Hello, Wendy.
Well, hello, Chris. I'm so glad to be here with you and Gemma.
Awesome,
Welcome, Wendy.
Thank you.
awesome. Like Gemma said, we've been a bit excited because we do have some questions that we're going to learn something, I'm sure. But one question, if I could start out with, um, you've done you've written some books called Regression Healing. You've actually used the name,
Yes,
and you've got a new book coming out called Joe and Marilyn.
yes, Regression Healing 2, Joe and Marilyn.
Yes, and I'll ask when is that coming out next. But you had Regression Healing 1, which is the Lord High Mayor, the World War II soldier, and the Huntsman. Sorry, I
Yes,
sort of bit. And am I correct in saying that you actually conducted research post session for, just to see if to validate certain aspects of the session that you came across? Is that correct?
certainly. Yes, it's very interesting. I mean, I've done research after sessions to try and validate details that come up for people. Clients have done so themselves too. But honestly, to me, the most important thing is how is the person doing? Are they doing better? Have we been able to resolve what the issues were if the session was for purposes of healing, if they were having pain, if they were having anxiety, depression, post-traumatic stress disorder, financial issues, relationship issues. As we well know, that's what's so fantastic about this modality is it can just heal so many things. So to me, that's the best research of all.
Absolutely, yeah, we completely
The
agree with that one.
results.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing the results that can be achieved. Amazing.
Yeah, so with regards to the Joe and Marilyn one, because I think you do cover some parts in the World War in your regression healing one, but what actually, sort of research did you get? Did you get, because, in, I sort of mentioned in regression healing that certain things or like left brain triggers are kind of taboo. And as Gemma said, quite rightly so, on one of our previous sessions, that if the client's deep enough, you can in fact get names, dates, and places. Did you actually go that far during the session, or
Yes, the premise of Joe and Marilyn, this was a very unexpected book for me to write because I did not expect these sessions to come up. I facilitated two sessions for a young woman who has profound memories that appear to be Marilyn Monroe,
Wow.
and I just honestly, I just kind of shied away from the quote, the famous, the historic, the biblical. But when it's part of our life purpose and when it's part of what we're meant to be doing, guess what? It's just going to keep coming up again and again and again. So to
And
have her referred to me and to do those powerful sessions, it was a really big deal. And then same thing with the Joe client. There are multiple sessions with the Joe DiMaggio client. And for people who aren't aware, Joe and Marilyn knew each other for several decades, and they had a brief, tumultuous marriage that was less than a year duration. But just to have those multiple sessions with that Joe client, it was just a really big deal. And it was like, oh, this is clearly a book.
So they know each other in this current lifetime.
Exactly.
Joe and Marilyn, and
exactly, they know each other in this lifetime, and each independently during session recognized and corroborated and spoke about the other person as that historical figure, former spouse, etc., but also named who they are now.
Oh, and that must sessions, be. Sorry, I was just going to say that must be fascinating if you're finding like synchronicities between both of their stories.
The synchronicity, and also there were multiple hypnotherapists involved. It wasn't like there was one hypnotherapist doing all these sessions where you could say, oh, well, maybe they really wanted this to be true, and therefore were inadvertently steering the ship a little bit too much, because there were multiple, because the Joe DiMaggio client in particular was extremely stubborn, did not want to believe that was a past life, had a lot of trouble accepting it. So that client went to multiple therapists and then would not say, I want to explore, I want to confirm and validate. Is it possible I was Joe DiMaggio? But guess what? As we know, the strongest energy, what you most need to heal and release, that's exactly what's going to come up. And session after session, more information came through from the Joe DiMaggio life, starting as a little boy, playing stickball on the sandlot in his neighborhood with some of his brothers and with some of the neighbors. And he got so detailed of describing how they would scrounge equipment because they didn't have proper equipment. And they would go check with their moms who might have an empty flour bag, and they would fill that flour bag with sand and dirt to make a vase. So just the level of detail was pretty amazing.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is it. You can't make it up. So he was just thinking that he was just making it up then, like so many other people. Yeah.
Yes.
That's going to be a little theme that runs through our little sessions. I'm sure it's going to stick, because we went into a session where we were kind of suggesting that you just really cannot make this stuff up. It's too consistent, and there's external evidence validating what transpired there.
Absolutely. And the emotion, the incredible emotion that came up on the Joe client's part when he was describing some of the regrets in his life, when he was describing how things fell apart with his first wife, because he was married previously to Marilyn, and also when he described how his son, his only child, became estranged from him as an adult by the son's choice. Just the pain of that was just hearing that in the voice. You cannot make that up.
No.
And it just,
you can't. The voices completely change, I find, in sessions.
It was just so raw. And also his description, his absolute horror when he realizes that World War II is starting. That section also was just compelling for him to realize that.
So it was quite a shock when it did start for him. He wasn't expecting it.
Yes. And then his extreme emotion and the carryover of the guilt that he felt regarding Marilyn's unexpected early death in her mid-30s, and the guilt and the blame that he was carrying, that he couldn't protect her, that he couldn't keep her safe. It was a really big deal, and it was still impacting that client's life. So
Wow.
it just really, really, really moving.
That is incredible. Absolutely incredible. Now, I'd like to, if I may cut in, forgive me, but I need to, because the recording button wasn't actually recording. I've just reset it. So for people that have just joined, I'd like to mention that we have on tonight as a guest Wendy Rose Williams. She's an author. She's learned regression healing, which is obviously a form of a different form of QHHT, past life regression hypnosis. Wendy has also trained with Dr. Brian Wives, the Many Lives, Many Masters technique, and she's also trained with other experts for past life therapy, future life progression, and the between life state. Wendy's also a spiritual teacher, a Reiki energy healer, hypnotherapist, and speaker. And she's brought 2 books out. One of them is Regression Healing 1, which is titled The Huntsman, the Lord High Mayor, and the World War II Soldier. That was published in December the 9th, 2016. And soon to come out is Regression Healing 2, Joe and Marilyn. And we were just discussing the evidence that we actually literally come across during sessions and post sessions, you know, with the emotions and literally physical evidence. And yeah, we were just discussing how about the research, the post research that was done, obviously after the session, to confirm that yes, in fact, we really have hit onto something really valuable information, and it certainly is valuable for the client, because it helps them deal with current issues, because we know that certain issues can get transferred into a past life. Normally there's a catalyst involved that actually activates it, and stress is one of those catalysts that can bring past life ailments into future lifetimes. We have found this. So yes, I had to go back over that one again, sorry.
Oh, thank you, Chris.
So when is your new book actually coming out?
It should be out in the next couple of months. It's been edited, so it's back in my hands, but I've just been so wonderfully busy with clients that I haven't had time to get it off to be formatted. So, but it will be available within the next few months.
Excellent.
Brilliant. And it's called Regression Healing 2, Joe and Marilyn.
Exactly. And then I also published the Flow 1 Plymouth Plantation as historic fiction, but it's actually based on my past life, coming from England over to colonial America as one of the first settlers at Plymouth Plantation in the early 1600s.
Oh yes, I think I saw something about that on your website.
Yes,
because I had a little look on there, and I saw that you are you call yourself a past life energy guide healer, and I just wondered if you could maybe give us a bit of background about how you came to be. And
sure. Well, I first learned about past life regression back in 2010. I met the soulmate that had the soul contract, and I believe we can plan our incarnations, including soul contracts with people that we're going to meet that are going to help us with certain important aspects of our growth and our life. So he introduced me to Michael Newton's Journey of Souls. And then I had my own first past life regression in 2011. And that 2 hours was so life-changing to be able to heal and release a lifetime of anxiety that was just holding me back too much. And I just wasn't able to be bold enough and to be able to do what I wanted to do before that session. And I recalled two very important past lives in a lot of detail. So to change your life like that in 2 hours, it's like, oh my goodness, that's magical. It's just, why doesn't everyone do this?
I know, right?
And then right at that very first session, and I didn't know how to meditate. I had never done anything like this, but just was
really?
Really. So it just, I had my master's in business administration degree. I'd had my MBA degree since I was 22 and leading this conservative life, and just was not interested in anything metaphysical or energy or to do with healing. So it was it was a total, it was a 360. It was more than a 180.
Yeah, like a catalyst, right. That launched you into what you're doing.
Yes, when I met that soulmate, and he's the client in Regression Healing 1, and we discovered over the next 8 years or so, we discovered 19 shared lives together. So there just was a lot of sorting that we needed to do, a lot of untangling, some celebrating too, but also a lot of straightening out.
Yes, so, I read that book. It was such an amazing story.
Oh, well, thank you. It just was really a privilege to do that session. That's the only session that's ever gutted me more than the client. It was quite interesting. He's dry-eyed and I'm bawling, going, "What's wrong with this picture?" But to find out that you have harmed someone, that you have also just loved so many times, that was really rough.
Yeah, that must have been quite horrific. I did feel that when I was reading the book. I mean,
absolutely.
I was reading your book when I was, I think it was just after I'd started doing Chris's course and everything. But yeah, it did really help me.
Yes. Oh, that's
very
lovely.
good.
That's so kind of you to say. So right at that very first past life regression, I signed up for a life between lives. I was working with a Newton therapist, and she kind of looked at me and said, "Oh my goodness, I've never had anyone want to sign up for one right away. Normally you'd take a series of other past life regressions and you'd learn how to meditate." And I just looked at her and said, I'm just compelled. I know I'm supposed to sign up for the LBL, the Life Between Lives, and I'll figure out what to do in the interim to get ready for it. And let's sign me up for 1 year from now. And she kind of looked at me like, I'm not sure my appointment book goes that far. It's before we had all this automated scheduling. This was back in 2011. But she did agree because she could just tell just how important it was to me. And I was starting to really hear my guidance at that point. And that Life Between Lives was incredible. And then it was life-changing when I transcribed it, because I did actually type everything from that session, because I was just so trying to understand it all and work with it. It was 65 pages of information that I hadn't known. And that's a really big deal, to get to enhance your life like that and improve your life like that. I felt like, oh my gosh, I now have like the answer book.
Yeah, that's how I felt. I was like, I found all the answers. Yes. I've done it. I've been looking for it and I found it.
Right, exactly. And then in 2012, the summer of 2012, I met my first quantum healing hypnotherapy practitioner, and she was amazing. I did 2 sessions with her that summer and started to get some of the physical healing that I had so needed. And that was a really big deal. So that just, hooked me even more, because I was getting physical healing, I was getting emotional healing, I was getting incredible insights, I was getting financial healing, relationships were healing. It was just checking all the buttons. And she introduced me to Chris, because it was at the time when Chris was just starting to train people, and I was very fortunate. I got to be one of Chris's first students. So that's how it all came about.
That's what I was saying. I believe, because we mentioned you in the last live stream, and I actually said that you've almost been doing this as long as I have. So because it was when I transitioned from QHHT into regression healing, and sort of left the subconscious. So yeah, literally, you have been doing this work as long as I have. Yeah, it was. It's pretty awesome. And can I mention? Are we allowed to mention who that amazing practitioner was?
Oh, absolutely! It was Irene Nola from Nolans, as they like to pronounce it. I'm not allowed to say New Orleans; it's Nolans in Louisiana. So that was just so wonderful that she introduced us.
It's excellent. She's actually had a session with me. Oh my God! She's just one incredible woman. In my opinion and from my experience, where we went, because I learned something new every time, but Irina was like a quick fire round, you know what I mean? It was like bam bam. I was like, oh my god, and I was almost struggling to keep up, but she is an absolutely amazing person. She called me a rebel for actually teaching my own method. So, but then takes one to know one, doesn't it?
Well, I feel there's that's so true, and here we are on the 4th of July. This is so ironic for me to be sitting here in the United States talking with 2 Brits on Independence Day. And I'm actually Canadian, but I've been here in the United States for a long time, since I was a child. Awesome. But I feel we're all meant to continue with the work and to put our own stamp on it. I mean, it's not meant to be cut and dry, and it's never cookie cutter, because the clients are our best teachers, of course. I mean, they're the ones where we have to really just be there serving them and be on our toes, and just be willing that things can be presenting for them. It's not like you can look on page 28 in a book.
No, you have to be in flow, I think.
Right, exactly. You have to be in flow, and yes, you have to learn the skills and the techniques, but then at a certain point, we're all master chefs, and we bring in our other abilities and skills, and just serve the client the best way we can. So like many people, I was using Chris's wonderful, script verbatim in the beginning, which is how most of us start.
Yeah.
And then my guides weaned me off that in a very interesting way. I had done maybe a dozen sessions that way, and I always knew where that binder was. And just one day I had a session scheduled. I couldn't find the binder. And it was like, oh my goodness, what do I do? And I could hear my guide say, graduation day. Don't let it become a crutch.
Yeah.
You at this point, you know it well enough. You're going to listen to the client. You're going to help them. And especially being able to bring in my skills as a Reiki master and my skills as a certified spiritual teacher. And I'm also a channel, so I was just able to bring those in. But it was just so interesting how And of course, after I did the session and it went great, I found the notebook like an hour later. Right in plain sight, but they were hiding it from me because they didn't want me to use it.
Yeah.
So fortunately, I realized that. I didn't panic. I didn't reschedule the person. It was just like, oh, graduation day.
I have to say, I'm really interested as to how you bring the Reiki in with the past life regression.
Yes.
I do a bit of crystal healing and energy healing myself.
Okay. Oh, that's beautiful.
But I noticed
lovely.
in your book, the Huntsman book, that you were using Reiki.
Right. So what I do now, if the person's having a single session, regardless if it's the 2.5 hour or the 4 hour session, if they're not doing, because I also offer 3-month and 12-month programs to people, but if they're doing the single session as a starting point, regardless of the length of time for it, we do 4 major components, and we start by going to a healing temple. And that's where we'll take a look at each of their chakras and just work with their chakras. And they're assessing them. And I love it. I'm so thrilled that my guides taught me and helped me come up with a technique, because never heard of them, because I might be working with a gentleman who's a male engineer. I could be working with a female physician, Western medicine physician, an attorney, people who just don't have any background in it. But you just name them, tell them where it is, what the traditional color is, and then we just go from there, and they're able to say, well, is it moving? Is it freely? Can you sense, is it moving to the right, to the left? Is it skippy? Is it smooth? Do you hear anything from it? I just get their impressions, and
get them to connect with that part of themselves.
Get them to connect with it, and then have their higher self and their guides do any healing or adjustments that's needed, because it's really empowering for them. It's not me and they're like the master car technician where I'm like, throwing open the hood and just start moving parts and pulling parts out. It's just meant to be very helpful and very, very empowering. So we do that together and work with their chakras. We also look at the major elements in their body. Is their fire versus water, their earth versus air balanced? And we also bring in a series of colored healing lights that go to a specific place on their body and heal them through all space and time, through any lifetime they've chosen, on planet, off planet, any dimension. Because I've been noticing people like you, Chris, and perhaps like you, Gemma, people recognizing that they're star seeds and have been on many other planets. But in the last year or so, year and a half, perhaps since COVID, when people more went within and started really doing the internal work, they're recognizing that they've been in other dimensions, and they're recognizing lifetimes as fairies and mermaids and dragons. Wow. And at certain points, sometimes the left brain will want to kick in, and they're saying to me, am I just making this all up? Is this like
is this real? But it sounds very ethereal, like lots of ethereal themes.
Exactly. So it's just a matter of of reassuring them, let's just go with it.
Yeah.
It's fine if it's fantasy. It's fine if you're making it up. It's fine if you're making up that you were a tree or you were a rock in part of a cliff face for 10,000 years. Whatever, a bird, a dog.
Yeah.
And some of them are definitely in other dimensions or on other planets. So it's just a beautiful process to see where the person goes.
Yeah, I've had a client before where they were able to see the fairies, but it was in a lifetime within this realm, and she said that the fairies had told her a secret, and I asked what that secret was, and the secret was that you don't see with your eyes.
You see with your heart.
That's all they said. You don't see with your eyes. You don't
Mm-hmm.
see with your eyes.
Wow.
That was the secret.
Mm-hmm.
Wow,
But yes, I do believe you see with your heart.
The heart, that's
Right.
what came to my mind immediately.
Your heart, your soul.
That's what we're meant to be seeing with, but I think
right.
a lot of people are seeing with just their 5 named and
right. Well, so many
given
people
senses.
right.
True.
Well, so many people just have such wounded hearts that they're afraid to feel with it. So being able to process those emotions, and we can't process the emotions by shoving them away and saying, "Oh, I'm not angry. I shouldn't be angry." Well, if you're angry, you dang well should be, because that's the only way you're going to resolve it. It doesn't mean you're going to turn into Rumpelstiltskin and be stomping on the floor. Yeah. Unless you need to do that for a minute, and that's fine too. But just to get people to release the emotions is a big deal. So that healing temple is the first of the 4 things we do in the session. And then I help the person meet their guide. And that's a lot of people's favorite part of the session, because they've tried and tried and tried, or have been connecting with their guide well, but just have disbelieved it. They've needed the encouragement. They've needed another neutral person to be able to validate that for them.
Confirm it.
Sure.
And then they're in a good place because they've received some healing, they've relaxed, they feel they've got that support and wisdom of the guide. So then we're ready to go to the time and place with the most healing and information for your life today. So then we do the quote past life portion, which, as both of you know, might be scenes earlier in this lifetime, because there's certainly, many things that can need to be reframed and cleaned up and released there, where there's just pain and blocks and self-limiting beliefs and just stuff that just doesn't serve us.
Absolutely.
So we might be working with that before we go to the more traditional past life or past lives. Some clients go to a parallel or simultaneous life, and that can be really mind-blowing for them, because they're like, oh my goodness, I just didn't realize I also had these other lives. This is putting aside the fact that really time is quantum and everything's happening at now, in the now, all at once. I'm putting that piece aside. I'm in this past, present, future, just this simple construct we use as humans. And some people do this cool hop, skip, jump to the future. And I love that, because we can talk with their future higher self, who's just got more knowledge because they've had more experiences. And it might be later in the present life, or it might be a true future life, 100 years from now, 500 years from now, whatever it might be. And then we get to just a certain point where we go to, it's appropriate to go to the last day of the past life that we're exploring. And I have them raise their vibration and frequency, and we just float gently up above the trees, and we go up to the light, up to source, heaven. I have them give me their preferred wording, early in the session, so I'm respectful of their belief system, because I have no interest or desire. It wouldn't be appropriate to try and change anyone's belief system. I just want to go with theirs the best I can, and just help them, open to more possibilities, if that's right for them. Yeah. So we go up to the light, and then we call in a guide or a greeter there. And then I ask that guide or greeter to be my QC check, my quality control check. And I have them roll back the tape and say, how did we do with the past life or past lives? Is there anything we missed? Did we understand it? Do we fully understand how that pertains to the life now and what they're working to improve and enhance now? So that guide can just really tell us, how they can be so pithy, and what they can say in a sentence is amazing. Can take me 10 minutes to ramble my way there.
I know exactly what you mean.
Human language, and they're like, boom, like the message from the fairy, the secret message from the fairies. We don't see with our eyes. That's so multi-layered, what that means. So I have them look at that, and then I ask them, okay, can the client now connect well with their guide? Can you look at what we did with the guide? Is that all perfectly set up so they'll be very comfortable and confident connecting with their guide on their own? And I also ask, say, please look at what we did in the healing temple. Can the client receive any more healing now that we're up with the light and we've raised our vibration and frequency? So, we may go to another place of healing, or they might have an important, beautiful reunion with a loved one that they've really been missing. And it can be with an animal companion, like their childhood dog, or, like a special animal. So lots of animals tend to come into my sessions because I'm a big animal lover and advocate. And I think therefore you just kind of attract clients who are also. So we've had some neat animal experiences. And then the final thing we do is go to the place of all knowledge. And that's where we get the answers to the important questions, because they can write up to 20 questions before the session, health, wealth, finances, career, relationships, life purpose. If they want to know about if they have any remaining karma to transmute, or if they have important soul contracts to learn about, whatever might be. So we go to that place of knowledge and have their book of life brought forward, which again, it's not just lives on Earth, it's off planet, it's all dimensions, it's that full book of life.
Wow.
And a lot of people, they're just naturally so awed to see their book of life, and they'll say things like, oh my gosh, it's really a tome. It's so huge, I can only call it a tome. I'm like, wow, I don't hear that word very often, but it's the perfect word. Or someone else said, it's so beautiful, the edges of it are all gold.
Oh my God, don't. That's exactly what, I'm sorry to cut you off, but that is exactly, when you look at, I transcribed one of my own sessions where I ended up in the light. I was in white robes, I was wearing sandals, which I've never been comfortable with in this. I don't like to wear, because the ego, where I was into fashion and all that, it wasn't part of my attire at that time. And I just looked down and I saw I was wearing a type of flip-flop sandals, and I don't like flip-flops even more. And I'm trying to really come to terms, but that sort of convinced me that I had something, we were, when I listened back to the recording anyway. But yeah, I tried to transcribe that book, but what was the main part of it? The gold and the size. I actually ended up saying that this book is the living book. It's eternal. It's massive. It would have infinite pages, but it did actually fit in my hand. So yeah, I could totally relate to that.
That's so neat. That must just, it's just like your heart just sings to be able to do things like that, and to be able to hold that book of life and realize that everyone has one. So for clients to just go through those experiences, it's just absolutely life-changing.
Totally. Yeah, I can agree 100%. My God, it was amazing. I was really light in that session. Obviously, because I didn't have any physical form, when I was asked to sort of stand up and have a look around, when I did get up, it was within less than a second that I was just stood as if I were weightless, So it kind of been enlightened in one sense. Completely enlightened. So yeah, sorry, carry on, but that was
please,
mind blowing that you said
absolutely,
that, because mine had gold edges as well. Yeah, it's
It's just a
beautiful.
big deal. And it might be, it can present differently for different people. I mean, it might be scrolls, it might be, a more like high tech, like a whiteboard that just like keeps getting written on. And it can be anything, but it's just so unique to the person. So each session is just different. I mean, do you both feel that way, that this work is just always amazing and fun, as the practitioner, because every session's different?
Yeah,
There's always something new. There's
Mm-hmm.
always something new, always
Mm-hmm.
something different. Every session
Mm-hmm.
is just so unique,
Absolutely.
and so interesting. I just find it so interesting how the past lives that people go to just relate to all of the questions that they've just put forward in the discussion beforehand about what they're looking for, how it just answers it all before we even get to the questions, before we even
metaphor.
get to
Yes.
the temple
Yeah,
of knowledge.
Yes.
I feel like I'm
metaphorically.
aware of what the story is trying to show them.
Absolutely. And my personal practice is, once I know I'll be doing the session with the person, it's scheduled and it's on both our calendars, and I send them a email of how to prep for the session and how to write their questions. But I'm just connecting and asking their higher self and guides to be connecting and working with my higher self and my guides, so that we've got like that teamwork flowing from the minute the session starts.
Yeah.
And I print out, their questions. I format it so I've got lots of room to write, and I lay them out on my desk, the day before the session. I ask them to send them 24 hours in advance so I can do that. And I'm just, really working to build the energy around that, and have my crystals there, and just, I've got my magic wand. I've got this fun little magic wand, and I kind of like lay that all, on the session papers, and then, go to bed the night before the session, and then it's just ready to rock and roll that next
Wow.
day.
Wow. Do we all do little rituals? I mean, I myself
Right,
do. I
right.
have my medicine Buddha. I have my magic pen and my
Mm-hmm.
magic pad. I carry crystals anyway, especially dark ones that absorb any negating energies, if you know what I mean. So, but yeah, it's really strange that, and a funny thing is that I didn't even understand about crystals and consciousness until I did years and years ago some magic mushrooms.
Mm-hmm.
And it's
Mm-hmm.
strange enough, which is your own personal sort
On
of
personal journey.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it's an inner journey, and yeah, and since then because there was no internet back then, and
Mm-hmm.
yeah, since then I've come online and noticed that it's not just me. Maybe I was just sort of triggered within a certain time frame. Or something, because I do find them beneficial. Just the metaphor,
Absolutely. I
even the concept, just the metaphor on its own.
I
Is,
I just had crystals come up very specifically in a session I did a few days ago, and the client is moving, to a new location, and she had a question. Was there any issue with there were some major power lines, near their new home, and she was concerned, would that be any issue for her children's health? And her higher self and guides said, yes, we're going to help you with that. And what they recommended was two specific crystals, and just suggested that she get those, and told her how to work with them. They also told her to put salt around her home, and they told her to build a fairy ring. So we went through like all those specifics of how she would do that, and now she's just feeling great. So we just blessed the new home that they'll be moving into within a month, and we thanked the old home for having been just a wonderful home and property for them, and just helped create that energetic transition.
wow.
Yeah, that's amazing. Salt's very protective, isn't it? I, I,
Mm-hmm.
I use salt for
Mm-hmm.
protection. Chuck it in the bath, I say.
Mm-hmm.
Lovely.
Wow. Wow. That's amazing. I mean, do you have another question? Because um, I do have one more question, but I'd like to mention about the fairies actually, because strangely enough, I did a Brian Weiss online little guided meditation. There's a few of those out there, and I was gardening, and I was started feeling a little bit concerned about the karma involved in weeds and the
Mm-hmm.
concept of weeds being the enemy and things like that. And I did this little guided meditation, and I was ejected instantly into this. What I saw was a fairy, and she was floating above. In most of my regressions, or a lot of them, because I've had 7, so I've gone through a few past lives. Sometimes 2 during one session, and I always end up seeing the entity that I'm just about to enter. So I could see this fairy on the outside straight away, and she was. My question was, what type of future life will this cause if I carry on gardening and weeding in the manner that I am doing? Okay, and
Yes.
then I went straight into a fairy, and this fairy was going round nurturing all of the plants that I believe that I've done harm to in the past. And it was a
Hmm.
beautiful forest. You know, a beautiful, stunning. It was stunning. This forest, the
Mm-hmm.
light was beautiful. I was obviously I felt kind of immortal, and that
Mm-hmm.
you would only be there as long as you needed to be there, and then transition when you're ready. But just the concept of like, okay, then I'm doing all this damage to the plant kingdom. What type of future life is that going to have? And I could not deny. I could not say no way. That's not, because it all made perfect sense.
Yes, everything has to balance up.
My God.
Um, for instance, I needed to have a large tree on my property taken down because it had become a hazard tree and didn't want it to fall on the house or on a neighbor's house, etc.
Hmm.
And I neglected to really go and talk with that tree and the plants around it before it was done. And so, the crew came and took down the tree, and I just within a day, I just felt wonky. And whenever I was outside or inside, it was just like, oh, just my house doesn't feel right. My property doesn't feel right. Something is off. And I actually ended up needing to do a session with a healer myself. And I didn't tell him anything about, having taken down this tree, but he said, "Oh, your property's not balanced. Your property's off." And then he asked me, he said, "Have you made some major change on your property recently?" I said, "Yes, I had to have a big tree taken down." He said, "Oh, that it just needs some conversation. It just needs to understand why." And to just to thank it for its service and for all that it did. So now, before I do anything on my property, I absolutely talk with the trees and the plants and the flowers. And as I'm weeding, as I'm doing whatever I do talk with everything.
Wow. Wow, I did find a method for overcoming my for avoiding the future life as a fairy, which was and it's amazing that you say that. When I learned the medicine Buddha, I had a medicine Buddha empowerment a good few years ago, and you receive a mantra that you recite whilst you're gardening. So as you wish it's really a compassion a mantra where you wish
Mm-hmm.
that the future lives for all of these weeds, so-called weeds, that you're literally praying for them constantly. So I'm reciting the mantra over and over and over, and just wishing all these a perfectly healthy future life, wealthy future life, happy future life, everything good. That everything in the future lifetime is perfect, and yeah, that sort of rested my mind a lot, actually.
That's beautiful, and we've got to get in sync with the planet, or it's not
Absolutely.
going to be habitable. I mean, that's in my opinion a big part of what COVID was about. Was just it's like Mother Nature sent us all to our rooms for a big timeout. Because we've
Yeah.
got to address global warming, and we've got to live differently. Because you start to hear people, oh, well, I just can't wait to get back to normal. No, I have no interest in working 9 to 5 and commuting hours a day and being stuck in traffic.
Oh,
And
boring.
yuck. It's just such an energy suck and so hard on the planet.
Yeah.
Big old fun sponge. Big old fun sponge.
It's just been fantastic to see that there's new ways, and many, many, many more people can work productively from home than were ever expected to be able to.
Yeah.
We've got the technology.
Yeah. Absolutely. And you mentioned about future lives as well, and I think it was only in the last session or the session prior to that I mentioned about two clients. They were having separate sessions, but they wanted to know whether they either should come together in this lifetime, because they live so far apart, thousands and thousands of miles apart. They wanted to know whether they should come together in this lifetime, or whether there would be a chance that they would get together in a future lifetime. And both of those clients, they would not disclose any information. Say the first one comes in, he does not say anything to the other client that about what he witnessed and what, and
You blind it.
Exactly.
Until both are complete.
Exactly. So and in both cases they went to they described a very similar place. They both described going to a party. They both described having the faces of the people in the party blurred out. Even portraits on the walls of people, their faces were blurred out. And I just assume that nothing is set in stone. It all changes but that was fascinating. That was completely mind-blowing. And then they both got their stories together, and then their minds were blown. But it turned out that they didn't really need to have a relationship in this lifetime, because they were going to have a future relationship.
They're scripting it.
Yeah, a child and everything. And it was just incredible.
That is.
You can't.
Well, hopefully that brought them both a lot of peace, because they both got the same answer, and it gave them clarity of what to do.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, that's really important, because yes, people can do sessions like that and don't share the results. I have a future book coming out like that, where what happened was a group of 4 of us all thought we had been in the same timeline together. There's actually a larger group, but 4 of us wanted to have past life regressions. We all had past life regressions the same week with the same therapist, without telling her, because we didn't want to influence her, and without discussing any of our sessions until all 4 of them were complete. And what happened was, in each session, we all talked about the one shared lifetime together, and we validated the other people and exactly who they were then and who they are now, and gave a lot of detail. For instance, we all described going to one wedding, the same wedding, but from the 4 different perspectives. So that was
My
just
God.
fascinating, and one of the most fun conference calls I ever had, because when the fourth person had her session, it's like, okay, now we can do a phone date, and the four of us share our sessions and talk about them.
My,
But that, I thought that was really special and really unique. And then
wow.
there were more people from that same timeline. So the one therapist did four of us, including me as the client. And then I did past life regression sessions for two or three more who were in that same lifetime with us. So it's a big number.
Wow. That
Yeah,
that
that is a big number.
that is incredible. You can't make it up. Anyway, Gemma, you have quite a few questions. So, would you like to ask another one? I mean, I'm going to save mine to the last, and hopefully you don't actually, because I've not looked over all of your questions. So,
Oh, that's all right. Well, we have discussed quite a few
yeah.
of them, but I do have more. So, Wendy, I wanted to, because I did go through your website, and I was just very interested because I'm a huge fan of yours,
Oh, you're so kind.
and I noticed that you offer like quite short regression sessions for your clients, and I just was interested to know how
Sure.
you achieve this, and
The
um,
single sessions are either the 2.5 hour or the 4 hour. Is that what you're referring to as the short sessions?
yes, I think there was a 2.5 hour one that I saw on
Yes.
there. So
Yes.
yeah, just
Yes.
wondered, do you have a quicker induction method, or how do you?
We do what I described, where there's the four components to the session, where we go to the healing temple, we bring in
Sure,
the healing lights, we then balance the four elements in their body, and then we then heal their chakras if they need any adjustments. Not everyone does, and then meet with the guide, and then go into the past life regression, and then cross over to the light and go to the place of all knowledge. So that's basically the format. So I don't do a lot of formal scripting or induction. It's like we just get in there and start having fun and start doing the healing work. Particularly because I know what they want to work on. I always do a 15-minute complimentary phone consult with people to talk about what they want and need and what's going on, and to assess, are we a good fit for each other. So I always have, that piece is there, and then if they choose to do the session, they've then done the prep, and they've written the questions. So that's kind
sure.
of the process. So in the 2.5 hours, yes, it's a short amount of time, and it depends on the person. Some might spend a fair bit more time in the healing temple than others, and therefore they're going to spend less time in the quote past life regression portion, or spend less time with the light. But the guides, I mean, the higher self and guides, it's just they architect it all, as we know. I don't have to time keep. It's just they know what we're doing and what the person most needs. So it just goes from there. My personal favorite is to do the 4 hour. I find having that extra 90 minutes is really, really helpful. So I therefore price accordingly, and it's only $100 more to do the 4 hour session.
Yeah, it's good to explore, isn't it? I guess it means that you can ask a lot more questions. You can go into a
Right.
bit more detail, and
Exactly.
rather
Exactly.
than
And
trying to sort of get through what they need to get
sure.
through.
And people have different levels of ability. Some people, they're able to relax quickly because they're already a meditator. So those are questions we go through too, on the front end. So I know going in, do they have a meditation practice? Do they have any spiritual practice? Do they do yoga? Are they a runner? Just whatever it might be. If they know how to raise their vibration and alter their state, we're just, so far ahead versus, again, and I want to say this kindly, the male engineer, where this is very different, and he or she might really want to be picking it apart, and it can just take a lot longer to be able to shifting into that. And then I've really got to get into my MBA persona, and I can meet them head on, and it's like, okay, let's look at this like it's a spreadsheet, and let's just, this is on this side and this is on this side. Now we're going to move forward here, and you can think about this later. You'll have your recording. For now, I'm encouraging you to have the experiences and just imagine and visualize and, what if type of thing, and getting them into that place. If they're athletes, anyone that's an athlete, I find they are master visualizers. So, even if they're a scientist, a physician, an engineer, an attorney, the really left brain type professions, if they're athletes, they can vision. So then I'll just, be calling on that.
Apparently, athletes use a lot of vision, don't they, in their training, is what I've read.
Exactly.
Visualization of the success, which is, I guess, where it comes from.
Exactly. That's why that came up in my first book, in Regression Healing 1, because Simon, the client in that book, had no spiritual practice, did not meditate, was a very, very fast-moving, busy, hard-driving guy, but he'd been a professional athlete. So I knew I could, just kind of call on that. And also, he's the one that introduced me to this, and he was extremely well-read and had had other sessions before. So I just was, working from there and just trying to get him connected with his higher self and guides. And we were able to accomplish that. So that was huge.
Awesome. I noticed as well, you offer sessions where the clients are exploring other realms and spending more time in between lives.
Yes.
I mean, for me, when I do that with my clients, that particular portion of the regression healing session is always my favourite part. Mm-hmm. And it's, for me, the most interesting part of any regression. I just wondered, is that something that you found clients like to explore more than their past lives, or does it offer a different level of healing?
It certainly does. I haven't had as many people do that type of a session, the between lives session, what Michael Newton trademarked as the quote, life between lives.
Yeah.
So, but it's going to come over time, because there's going to be clients that have now had their first past life regression, or maybe they've done another, or maybe they've done this series. And people that are doing the series with me, the 3-month or the 12-month, that's where we're able to include that as part of the program. And I love those too, because when you get to go back to the womb in this lifetime and find, when did your soul join the womb, and were you going, in and out, and what month did you fully join, and why did you select this body, and why did you select those parents, and why did you select that location for your birth? I just think that is so fascinating. And it can be off-putting for some people to think, I didn't choose my parents. You are crazy. There's no way. So some people definitely, feel that way. And when they learn that they really did, and what's that expression about, you got to have that coal just rubbing together. And if you don't have the challenging, contentious relationship with one or both parents, it's going to come up with someone else, because we need it, because that's how that coal over time turns into a diamond, because it just gets polished away, and we get our rough edges off. So, it's going to happen. It's going to happen over time. But I love those too. And going to like the place of selection, where you were shown various lifetimes based on what you said you wanted to work on as a soul, to learn, and to look at the various options you were given. I think that's just fascinating too, because they can be so wildly varied, yet still get you back to the same things that you wanted to work on, which might be as simple yet as profound as I wanted this lifetime, for instance, I wanted to work on forgiveness. I wanted to really, really get better at just being in that easy state of grace where really there's nothing to forgive. It's not our role to judge. And if you're not judging, you just don't need to forgive. And
Absolutely.
I also needed to master self-forgiveness because was really carrying some pretty heavy guilt that was harming my body, and just wasn't meant to be carrying that sort of guilt. So to master that self-forgiveness was a big deal.
Yeah, it sounds like you've been on quite your own healing journey as well, which I guess is where we all sort of start, isn't it? With our own questions and we want the
Absolutely.
answers to
Absolutely.
what's going on and the ultimate solution.
My
Which
personal belief is any therapist should be having their own sessions. I don't care if you're a hypnotherapist, a psychotherapist, a psychiatrist. I think we all absolutely are always a work in progress.
oh, totally, yeah, totally. We all need healing. We all
Yes.
need healing.
So
Yes.
true, yeah.
So what other questions do I have? Oh, yeah, I wanted to ask you. So, how can our listeners get hold of one of your books? Are you
Sure.
launching it on your website
They're
or?
on Amazon and they are
Mhm.
on Audible as audiobooks. So simply by going to Amazon and pull up the book tab and then look for Wendy Rose Williams. And yes, they're featured on my website too, but they're not sold via my website. All the order fulfillment is via Amazon and Audible because I did record both the first two books as audiobooks.
Oh,
And
as well. Brilliant.
yes, and I'm planning to do that with all books. And I've also got some short stories published in collection books. I've got a short story in a book called Heaven Sent: True Stories of Pets That Have Touched Our Hearts in Miraculous Ways. So when you look on Amazon under Wendy Rose Williams, you'll find that book too. And that book is, I had a really amazing experience where I fostered a dog just about 4 years ago now, and I had a cat who just absolutely wanted to be the one and only pet in the house. So he charged the German Shepherd that was in the crate, and I had World War III on my hands. And it was very, very interesting because I was not able to keep that lovely dog, but I wasn't meant to. And what turned out was, and she was a German Shepherd mix named Berlin, and I had the most intense 24 hours with her. I actually ended up needing to sleep in my car with the dog in the garage that night because I couldn't keep the cat and the dog separate,
Oh
and
God.
I just knew I was going to have a rumble because the
Sounds
cat kept
intense.
going after the dog to try and chase the annoying dog out of the house. And the poor dog's like, "What? What is this? What is this 12-pound Tasmanian devil thing? I didn't do anything wrong. You know, she invited me in. Look, she's got a dog bed. She's got dog food. She invited me in. What's going on?" But so very, very confused dog. But what turned out was, as I slept in the car with the dog, just this profound past life of my own came up in World War II, where the dog was my own war dog. So I named the short story The War Dog. And
Wow.
guess what? I was an American soldier sent to Berlin in Germany.
No
Hello, I'm
way.
fostering a dog named Berlin, who's a German Shepherd. Hello. So it just was like, oh my goodness. And it just, there was so much that happened in that 24 hours. It took me quite a while to process it all. And Berlin had a great ending. I took her back to the rescue, very chagrined, and just explained, I'm so sorry. I normally 1000% live by my commitments, but I just cannot work this out between the cat and the dog. There's just that the cat will not accept the dog in the house. So she was rehomed, and she got a fantastic home, and she's now named Indy. And I thought, how perfect to go from Berlin, this very, heavy World War II energy, to now independent. How
Yeah.
perfect. And she goes hiking and camping, and just her parents just dote on her. And what my guides explained to me was, she saved your life in World War II. She literally saved your life, because
Wow.
she dragged me out of a burning building when I was unconscious. And I saved her life in this lifetime because I said I would foster her, and she was moved from California up to Seattle. So I paid back that debt that I had owed.
Wow.
Oh, that's lovely. It's like
Excellent.
you were an important part of her journey, and then the name change as well.
Right.
It would create like a new energy,
Yes.
and
Yes.
new life with the new name. Like the way that numerology works as well,
Yes.
with
Exactly.
the letters. So
Exactly.
it's a lovely story.
Oh, well, thank you. And Heaven Sent, it's a really special book, and all of the proceeds, the publisher makes zero money, the authors make zero money. All the funds from it go to a special veteran charity that helps them get aid dogs, because
Oh, I
aid
love
dogs
that.
are very important and very expensive. So that's where the funds from it go. So as people purchase it on Amazon, they don't realize that unless they really read the description. But that's where all the profit from it goes.
Oh,
Wow.
so you gave even more than what you gave back to Berlin.
Yes, yes. It
Oh,
just it just
Awesome.
was it just was important to do, and the publisher had such a good, clear vision for it, and it was just an absolute honor to get to contribute a short story to it.
oh.
Awesome. Well,
So,
we'll add
I was gonna.
links anyway. We'll add links. Sorry.
Yeah, definitely. I'm making notes and about these books, so I'll put something down as
Sure, and I
well.
can just share my Amazon author page with you, and then it's got all the books on the one link.
Perfect. Awesome. Absolutely
And
awesome.
you've got a TV show as well, haven't you, Wendy?
No, I have a podcast. But it actually has a video component, so it might seem like a TV show. Um,
Ah,
so Waking Up Spiritually, I podcast with my co-host Greg Kirk twice a month on the second and fourth Sunday at noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern, for Greg. And wakingupspiritually.com is the archive for all of them, and there's also a YouTube channel. And we do them with video on, and they all have PowerPoints. So it's both an audio and a video component to it.
oh, cool. And what's that? Is that more past life stuff that you're
We've
doing on there,
um,
or?
we did an episode on past lives, but Waking Up Spiritually, it runs the gamut of what people go through when they start to realize, oh my gosh, there's so much more than this one lifetime. There's so much more than this 9 to 5 grind, and I do have a bigger life purpose, etc. So it's just to offer people support. We've done quite a few episodes on energy management, helping people ground and clear their energy, raise their vibration and frequency. We've done programs where we've talked about the chakras, because Greg's also a Reiki master. We've touched a lot on past lives, because of course that energy is so huge for all of us, whether we recognize it or not.
Oh, it's so
So
important, though, isn't it? I mean, it can be. I think it can be quite lonely when you start to wake up
it can
spiritually,
be,
because
because
for me,
Yes.
I definitely had a lot of things.
Did a lot of people drop away because they couldn't relate?
Yeah, yeah, a lot of lot of detachment, a lot of
Yes.
realization,
Yes.
but also like a deep understanding and feeling very at peace with
Mm-hmm.
what I possibly would have previously perceived as being negative. You know, like
Mm-hmm.
not seeing particular people anymore and
Right.
things like that, or you know, family or friends falling away, and
Yes.
you
And
see everything as a lesson and a journey and how you reached this particular point. And
absolutely. And
so I think that's great you're offering that.
I think it can be very off-putting and very lonely for people until they attract and find their new tribe. And we always do, but it just can take some time. And when we don't know if that's going to be months or years, that can be off-putting. And that can be why people stay in dysfunction or stay in codependency because they're afraid of being alone and they're afraid of doing the work. And it just gets better and better and better. And like you said, getting that feeling of peace and just nothing beats it. To really have get your heart healing done and just feel more and more love because we're generating it from within ourselves. No one can complete us. Jerry Maguire had it all wrong. I really dislike that film with the "you complete me." No one
Oh no,
completes you. No one
of
completes
course,
you. That's
never.
codependency. So it's just but once we start to recognize, okay, I've really up leveled, I've really raised my vibration and frequency, I'm doing my work, and I'm just don't want to, put up with the relationships that don't serve me anymore. And it also can be the other people choosing, because you just don't have points to relate to anymore. It's not like
Yeah,
we're
you're just not resonating
we're, we're
with
not
each
18 years
other.
old and coming out of high school
No.
and how much beer can I have at a party? That's like of absolutely zero interest to me. But when I was 18, that seemed fun.
It seemed
That was like
important.
the rite of passage at the time. Or like Chris's comments about the fashion and just he was horrified by the flip-flops because he wouldn't be caught dead in flip-flops. So it's just our ego getting
Yeah.
balanced, and us growing up and just progressing as souls. So it's not as scary or off-putting when we realize, oh gosh, I see what this is. It's like the third time I'm going through this, where a whole bunch of family and friends are just falling away, and just wish them the very best.
Yeah.
And just know that that's okay. Your new tribe will keep coming, or you attract and create the tribe is very appropriate too.
I mean, it's interesting, like you say, about the ego, because I think the ego is, you know, one of the biggest problems that we have. And I think a lot of people's understanding of the ego is that they think it's always about the big I am, but actually the ego is not always about that. It can be, you know, that part of you where you're actually just very worried about what people think. Not that you want to be top of the pops or anything like that, but if you are concerned by other people's opinion, that is also your ego, is it not?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Would you like to know the theme of regression healing too, Joe and Marilyn?
I'd
It
love to.
was
Definitely.
it was to heal what will other people think. So you just nailed it, Gemma.
Woohoo!
Yep,
How's
that's the
that?
theme all throughout the book. 120,000 words, and all those sessions. That is the theme: is letting go of what will other people think, because
Oh, I'll be
we
reading that anyway. I'm so fascinated by Marilyn Monroe and
yes.
the history behind her and everything.
Yes, she overcame so much. People just don't realize. And a lot of people say, oh, she was so flighty and she was always late, and they just don't realize how much she was working to overcome, and how hard she worked to produce the films and the musicals, and the amazing photographs. I mean, she knew how to work that camera.
Mm.
Is just amazing, and she was such a reader. A lot of people don't realize she absolutely loved. She was quite bright, and just absolutely loved to read, and always was into multiple books and that sort of thing. So she and Joe were a pretty big mismatch on that. He was a high school dropout because he had pursued the path as an athlete, and that
Oh,
was perfectly appropriate for him. But he was not the intellectual, deep thinker that she actually was, despite the fluffy movies. So
that's the part they
Wow.
wanted her to play, though, wasn't it? And she
yes,
did. She
that
did
was really
play
the
it
only
very well.
option for her. Was, I don't like the term, but the dumb blonde. That was just. But she was very bright, and just really really overcame so much with such a dysfunctional early upbringing, and not knowing who her father was, and her mother being institutionalized, and just so much, bounced around so much, just didn't have stability, whereas Joe had beautiful stability. So he was always able to go back to that. So his fame didn't eat him alive, and hers killed her. Hers arguably killed her.
She was very vulnerable, though. I think that's the
Yes,
impression I get.
very
She was
vulnerable, very
vulnerable,
gentle.
and
And
they were
some
never going to put someone in that position where they would have been like a strong, intelligent woman. They wanted,
Right,
that dumb blonde.
right. Exactly, exactly. So yes, because it was that old studio system where you really were kind of a slave to that system. It was years before Lucille Ball. Lucille Ball being the first female studio owner, I believe, she helped break some of that mold with Desilu Productions with her husband, with Desi Arnaz. So, but that was, that would come later.
Wow. You just can't make it up, can you? You can't make it
No,
up.
no. And there just was some really very gritty history between them, because Marilyn was institutionalized in mental institutions several times, and
All
some of
right.
them were absolutely horrible, just snake pits. And Joe removed her from several of them. And
Wow.
and Joe also sat by her side all day, every day, at the last major breakdown that she'd had, where she was institutionalized, and just sat there, and then took her down to Florida, and just kept the press away, and just he used his
Protected
influence
her.
to try and protect her
Mm.
the
Yeah,
best
it
he
does
could.
sound like his role was to protect her in
Yeah, very
some
very
way.
vulnerable soul, and she was just such a light. She was just such an incredible bright light.
I think that's what happens though when you do sort of open up yourself, open up your heart and soul. Without the relevant protection, you can. The world can get you down, can't it? It can break you if you're not really mentally protected, sort of thing.
Absolutely, absolutely. I have yet to meet a person who is too grounded. We all need to be very grounded and very clear in our energy. Do the best we
Yes,
can to. I do that daily, just multiple times a day. Get myself grounded and clear.
awesome.
Yeah, that's one of my big issues is grounding. I can
Hmm.
often be a bit spacey feeling,
Right.
and I
It's
have to
easy
do a
for us
lot
to
of
travel
grounding
up.
practice.
We can
Yeah,
travel up because of what we're drawn to do, and it's why we're good at what we do for a living. But yes, I've got grounding stones in both my pockets, almost always.
Boji stones? Are they boji stones, Wendy? No, I'm curious what stones you've got in your pocket.
Just different. They're always black, but just different. I'll just go over and look through and say, okay, I couldn't tell you if it's black tourmaline or what it is. It's
Tourmaline.
just different.
Tourmaline is my
Yeah.
one. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I use the idea that it is piezoelectric. That it really, literally can produce a voltage if you squeeze it. So I am fully aware that of its energetic properties to produce an electromagnetic response to pressure. Yeah. And
watches ran on quartz, didn't they? They
still do quartz, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And speaking of the crystals, part of the session that I do with clients when we're going to that time and place with the most healing and information for their life today, we do go through a crystal cave. So, and just they're able to feel that crystalline healing energy that's radiating toward them, that's perfectly aligned for them. And I invite them to feel that if they choose to, because also some people just they have hyper alert nervous systems, or they have PTSD, and just they just don't want like random things happening to them quickly. It needs to be their choice. If they want to feel that, I invite them to feel it, but it's certainly never doing something to someone is the opposite of what, I want the session to be. Because I've personally experienced sessions like that as the client, and it's like, oh, wow, I have to just go in so blocked and shields up because I just don't know if people are going to get rambunctious. And that my nervous system, I don't respond well to that. It's just I'm going to then like block.
Yeah.
It needs to be an invitation. It needs to be gentle, for me to choose to participate.
Yeah. It's the same in regression healing. We say you can, if you wish, feel the energy emanating from the crystals. Yeah.
Exactly.
Completely.
Exactly. And same with the healing lights. I make sure to give people a little dial that goes from 1 to 10. So if they want to feel more of it, they can just turn the dial up themselves, or vice versa. If any of the lights come in, quote, hot, it's just a little bit too much energy, and they're like, whoa, I'm getting zapped. I'm getting a headache. I'm getting this or that. As they're getting the energy release, it's like they can just turn it down, and we just ask for more ease and grace, and for it to be a little bit slower for them.
Do you think the colours of the healing lights in the regression are significant in any way, Wendy?
I think they're very unique to the person. I even find people, I no longer tell them, okay, we're working with your root chakra, the associated color is red. I no longer say that because I find it can have some variety in different people. So I think it's exactly what they need. And the only time I'll ask the color a question, because I'll talk to the colors directly sometimes. So if a color comes in as like a murky brown or a black, I always say to it, I so appreciate, and every color is just perfect and it's what it should be. May I ask respectfully, is there a higher vibration aspect of this color? Does it want to shift or change? So occasionally I'll do that. And usually it'll shift, but sometimes the brown will say, no, I'm not supposed to shift. I'm supposed to bring in lots of brown and green to represent the earth and to help them get more grounded, because they're super spacey. They're out of their body. So that's why the brown or the green might be coming in.
Yeah.
You mentioned
like the earth, right?
Yeah, you mentioned black light, and I've had a couple of clients now that were actually not comfortable with that. They almost stopped the session because but probably their conscious idea of what black represents, darkness. But no, it turned out to be a perfectly valid frequency for them to experience at that time, because it was like an absorption type of factor in one case, where it actually took unnecessary coloration that had been added, so it kind of was just absorbing that spectrum of color. And but initially they weren't comfortable, but then I mentioned that it's very important. You're being shown this for a perfectly good reason.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
And they might be balancing up their masculine and their feminine, their yin and their yang, and it might present as black and as white, or
totally.
whatever's going on. But yes, a lot of us we were socialized, and we don't realize it might have come through religious indoctrination before we can remember. Because we may have been in Sunday school from 1-year-old to first grade, where we don't necessarily have much of a memory. But I just got a major healing for that recently. I was very surprised because I was having all these weird reactions and fear around magic, and it just wasn't making sense. So I worked with a shaman, and she was able to see it immediately, and my guides all validated, and I was like, oh yes, of course. And it was well-meaning Sunday school stuff that had told me, magic is evil, and the dark arts and the black, and it wasn't appropriate. It wasn't appropriate. But I had gotten that because I was so young. You don't have any filter.
No.
You just don't have any filter under the age of 8 or so.
I think that a lot of young children's fears come from a lot of stuff that's said about the occult. Because I think
Yes.
a lot of people come to me with their children that are experiencing nightmares and problems like that, and it's normally seems like there's other people in the room that want to play with them at night time. So yes, I think that misunderstanding that there's always something to be afraid of, it does create a big fear, especially when you're a child. I used to be terrified at night time when I was a kid.
Right.
Yes, I went through that with my youngest daughter, who's now 23 and just wrapping up college, finishing her engineering degree. And she had night terrors way, way beyond what was normal. I mean, they went literally into her teens, where she would be, waking up the entire household several times a week. And I just didn't know how to help her. The pediatrician didn't know how to help her. But it was past life energy. It just was just an amazing amount of past life energy that she wasn't ready to deal with and didn't know what to do with.
Wow. We do have users. There's some Facebook users that have you been seeing the comments? There's somebody said they saw a path of a crystal once from Source being delivered.
Oh wow, the whole life of the crystal. That's fascinating. No, I have not been reading those.
Oh, okay.
So I don't know if you're able to recap those. I don't have a way to pull those up. I can just see the most recent one.
Yeah, I can just see one in the middle of the screen.
Oh, it's in the middle, is it?
Yeah, it looks big.
And there was one about
this
one was about Marilyn Monroe, mentioning that she did have power and that she was very intelligent. It was another sort
absolutely
of confirmation.
That's a great comment. I agree.
And great show tonight. Thank you. I'm not sure why we can't actually see the names of people that are actually tuned in.
I think they have to be signed into Yardstream
Oh,
to,
okay.
otherwise it's like this generic quote Facebook user because it's the interface between the two, I believe.
Oh, okay. I'm going to have to simulate that because I can't even seem to actually. I was going to post a comment as a reply. Um, oh, Johnny boy. Hello. Good evening, Johnny boy. Or yeah. And they saw all the people who touched the crystal from
Oh
Source.
my goodness, all the people who'd ever touched it. I mean, I would think that could be thousands of years.
That's incredible. That's absolutely incredible. But yeah. Oh, I've detracted now. Where were we? Do you have any more questions, Gemma? Because I do have one that I think it's rather epic. Because most
Oh,
sessions,
go for it with your epic question. Go for it.
most sessions are really epic, and I would just like to ask Wendy if she could share like one or two of the most profound sessions. I mean, obviously, it's going to have it's going to be beautiful because that's normally
Sure,
what comes out. But the way you know the way
absolutely.
things link up and it's kind of convoluted between lifetimes. You know, but it all makes perfect sense to the client. Could you share one or two of your?
Absolutely.
That'd be great.
One of the ones that immediately comes to mind that I thought was epic was a woman who had severe uh, problems with her knees, pain, etc., and she was in a wheelchair much of the time, and she had struggled with finances to the point of homelessness, and she had I think four children, and just there just had been such a hard life. And we did a session, and she went back to Ireland immediately, where she was the wise woman, and she was a wonderful, heart-filled, empathetic healer and very proficient healer. But because people were so poor, she felt she was literally taking bread out of babes' mouths for her to be paid in any way, even if it was to be paid with food. So she had developed this incredible aversion to finances. So it was like she was allergic to money.
Wow.
And it was also very linked with the poor health. So she was like punishing herself, and it was incredible. She sorted that out so quickly in the session. She's like, "Oh my gosh, this isn't true anymore, and this is no longer a problem." And within very quickly after that session, she'd just not been able to either find a job or keep a job. Something always was going wrong in this lifetime with the jobs, and she very quickly was able to not only get her dream job working from home, but she was also able to, she got a surprise little inheritance that summer, and she was also able to start her own business unrelated to having the full-time employment. And she got so much healthier, she's no longer using the wheelchair.
Oh
So
my
I thought that
God.
was just epic on all levels, all because she found this past life as the wise woman in this just really starving Irish village. So that was a huge one. Another one was I did more recently, and the woman, again, for children, four sons, and one of the sons, and she came to me just deep grief, and one of the sons had suicided right at the end of high school when his girlfriend broke up with him. He just could not handle the emotions of that as an 18-year-old, and he committed suicide. And another one of her sons had been to the point of being suicidal. Another one was homeless, and another one was doing fantastic. But think of all that on your mother's heart. It was just huge.
It's a weight.
It's a heavy load.
Yeah, heavy load. So we spent a lot of time on her chakras, and her throat chakra was just super blocked. She could hardly make sounds, and she did start kind of coughing and sputtering, and I was coughing and sputtering on her behalf during the session, trying to clear her throat chakra. And I finally said to her, make a sound, make any sound. I don't care if you can sing or not. Pretend you're alone in the shower. Start toning, start making some continuous sound. And she was able to do that, and she got through the block. And also, she had this tremendous root chakra healing. We actually replaced her root chakra. I'd kind of suspected going in, and this is why you shouldn't have expectation. I was wondering if we'd find a very broken heart, but it actually had, her system had broken in her root chakra.
Oh wow!
So we replaced the root chakra, and that's unusual. Normally, chakras can be repaired. Or adjusted, etc., strengthened, fine-tuned, but occasionally they need to be replaced. So we replaced it. And also, we had gotten to the point where she'd booked the 2.5-hour session, and I could just feel it. I could feel like she was finally going to be able to wail out some of that grief. And she did it right at the 2.5-hour point. So of course I just stayed with her for another half hour, and she finally really cried for what this burden had been on her mother's heart, and how she just so loved her boys and wanted to support her boys, her men at this point, but just how hard it had been. And she wrote me just this lovely testimonial just a few days later. And she said, "You won't believe it, but I can sing now. I can sing again. I'm happy again. And you won't believe the miracles from my heart having been, received a lot of healing." Life is obviously never the same after a family member, particularly a child, suicides. Life is not the same.
No.
You've got before and you've got after. But I just applauded her bravery and just thought she was just the gutsiest woman. So that was just really a big deal. And another gal, she was having a lot of trouble with lower back pain and mobility, and she couldn't ride her she had an adult tricycle was her primary mode of transportation. She doesn't have a car, and she couldn't ride it because she was having so much back and leg pain. So the lifetime we went back to, it turned out one of her legs had been amputated, and she had spent just decades hobbling around on one bad crutch. So we got her soul to realize that was then, this is now. Can we heal the body now? She's got 2 good legs and 2 good feet now. Can we get her? Because I think she was just very tipped over energetically from having, hung on that crutch.
It's imbalanced as well, isn't it?
Yes.
One bad foot can put your spine out. Yeah.
Exactly. And again, she contacted me a couple days later, and she said, "You won't believe the difference. I'm standing so much more upright. I just feel like I've got such better balance. I don't have the same pain when I walk, and I'm able to ride the tricycle again, and go to the store and get what I need, and just get around and live life." So that one, as simple as that sounds, that was very epic for her.
It's very epic. It sounds very epic, yeah. Just that healing, and
Yes.
Yeah, sounds like she let go of a lot with the emotions. Sounds like there was a big release there.
It was a big release
that had been held on to for a long time.
And another gal had this extreme fear of heights, to the point where it was really making her not be able to live the life she wanted to live. So she would describe to me And she was actually visiting from out of state. And she's like, yes, so when I'm at the airport, I can't go up or down an escalator because I'm afraid I'm going to fall off. I'm afraid of the heights because I can see over the side. So she'd always have to go find the elevator. And she said, there's not always a convenient elevator or, an elevator that's easy to find, etc. So this was really monkeying with her. And she wanted to be able to hike. She was newly engaged. She had this lovely fiance. They were an older couple, and they just wanted to be able to go hiking and go on trips in Europe. So she wanted to be able to fly and to just not be having this debilitating fear of heights. So we did a session, and she immediately went to this. It was really a lovely life where she was living in the woods, and it really was so lovely in so many ways. But the ending was not nice, and she'd fallen asleep just by the side of this little river that went right by her home, by her cabin, and she fell asleep, which was perfectly fine and normal for her to do. She just was so like at one with the woods. But for whatever reason, some people came along and pushed her. They attacked her, and she was male in that life, and attacked her and pushed her into the water, and she died. And she doesn't have a fear of water, but she associated that sudden fall leading to her death, that fear of heights, because to her it was like deadly, like heights equal death.
Even a small height there then, is that correct? That it was just on the riverbank, but it was a full.
It was just on the riverbank, yeah. So it wasn't a very big height, but but because she died,
wow.
It then carried forward into this lifetime.
Exaggerated.
So she contacted me too and said, oh my gosh, we can go hiking, and I don't have to go find the elevator at the airport, and I can go up the escalator. I don't love it, but I can do it. So that was really neat. And then another recent client, just a few weeks ago, I had asked her, I just had a sense from one of the questions she'd written, and I asked her permission, would it be okay if I were to do a home and property clearing for her as part of the session? Because she had mentioned a couple visitors mentioning that she might have a ghost in her home, like a stuck soul that hadn't gone to the light. And she was kind of like, oh, it's not bothering me, it's not a big deal, but she'd like thrown it on her question list, as she put it. But my guides were saying, this is a much bigger deal than she thinks. So I asked her permission, and we did that home and property clearing toward the end of her session. And I heard my guides say, it's done. All three of them, there were actually 3 ghosts,
wow.
Accepted the invitation and went up to the light as I talked it through with them and did a prayer for them. And it was really interesting. She said to me at the end, hey, I have to validate for you, because I didn't say 3 to you. I purposefully said, may have a ghost, and you said 3 just cleared. And she said, that's what multiple people have told me, was there were 3 ghosts in my house. And her comment was, you can't believe how much lighter it feels in my house. I feel not so overworked. I don't feel like so heavy. I don't feel so exhausted. Even though she works a very demanding work schedule. And she also has a large number of dogs. And she said the dogs aren't randomly barking so much. It's quieter and happier in the house.
Wow.
So I thought that was just really super neat. What a great outcome. And you don't necessarily expect that as part of your past life regression, but it just came up.
Wow. So you're covering a lot more bases than
Yeah.
just with regression healing. We hope to get it, just done all in one session, and hopefully these the main issues become addressed. But yeah, you're covering more than one base there, aren't you? Really, it's pretty awesome.
Absolutely. I feel really fortunate, because since I had so many spiritual experiences, energetic experiences, And a lot of them were quite off-putting. They were just scaring the bejesus out of me. So that's why I worked with a lot of different types of healers, shaman and mystics and psychics and just a lot of different people. And that's why I became the Reiki master, and that's why I became the certified spiritual teacher, because I just wanted to be able to understand things for myself and to understand my experiences and heal my experiences. And then it just led to this wonderful blossoming of, it just brought a lot of depth and comfort for me of I can help people with many things during their session.
Yeah, I love how you've just made it into your own thing. You know, like I said to you, I do the crystal healing and energy
Yes,
healing, and
yes.
I'm also a regression healing practitioner. And
Uh-huh.
I'd love to incorporate my other skills into my regression sessions as well, and provide a
Sure,
more
sure.
thorough and diverse style of healing. Um, do you have any tips for me, Wendy?
Just keep talking with your higher
Golden
self and
question.
guides, and just don't hold yourself back. Just let it flow naturally during session, because I didn't expect it, but I just suddenly started building these healing crystal grids, and then I started building these big, beautiful, powerful altars. And often they were had a very specific intent. Like I've done them for the dog rescue that I volunteer with. I've done them for clients. And when I would do them for clients, I would do them before the session started. I mean, yes, I'd seen their questions and we'd talk by phone, but I didn't know them very well. And I was always floored by what I would be guided to put on that crystal grid for them, or on that what became an altar. I was always floored as we went through it at the end. I'm like, okay, I have this here for that. Does that mean anything to you? And I would just ask them questions, or some of it I could see the direct correlation during the session. So definitely it was the guides coming in, and then I would just take photos of it and email them the photos
So
as part of the session.
you were getting like the messages from the guides for the items to put on the altar,
Exactly,
and I
exactly.
see. Yeah, and then
The intuitive flow would just come, and the guides would just say, okay, they need some water on the altar, or they need some sage, and they need all four elements, or they need a lot of they need a lot of rose quartz, or they need a lot of amethyst, or whatever it might be. And again, I think because I've got the MBA degree, a lot of times I'm helping people with their spiritual business because they want to start it, but they're not sure how, or they want to take it to the next level. And that's super fun for me because I can kind of combine the 30 years in which I worked in industry and was working in business.
do you
And I
do
can
workshops, Wendy?
I used to do workshops before COVID. I was doing past life regression workshops. It was a 2.5 hour session, and it would be up to 6 people would come, and they were coming from all different states and countries. It was super, super fun because they were visiting Seattle, and just, they were
Yeah.
staying in an Airbnb. So they found my Airbnb experience of who do you think you are, and what do you think your past lives might have been. So I was doing workshops there. Now it's more normally speaking at summits and conferences and things that someone else is organizing, and I have the good fortune to be a speaker as part of it.
Awesome, awesome. I mean, you do crystal grids. Do you have them on your website? Is that correct, Gemma? You do, don't
I
you?
do. I do.
Yeah, I was looking
Yes,
through the other
I
day
do make a
actually.
few
I'd love to look
grids.
at those, Gemma. I'll have to get your website from you, or please, if you can share it now, I'd love to take a look. That's so amazing.
Yeah, I'll connect with you on Facebook. I'll
Perfect.
send you a little
Perfect.
friend request.
Perfect.
And
Perfect.
yeah, I'd love to look at your page as well. So
Sure. Yes. Yeah. Because they're really fun.
they're really fun, really
For
really
instance, yes,
powerful.
yes,
I
they
use
are. They
use them a
are.
lot for a lot of things. I've been
Hmm.
selling my house recently, and I've had a grid up, and it was funny because the grid got disturbed the other day, and all of a sudden we got all of these little difficult questions from the solicitor, and I realised that something had sort of gone amiss on the grid, and when I put it back in and re-energised it, everything just went back to normal. And I was
like me having that tree cut down without having spoken to it, the same sort of thing. It's really interesting. You know, things can get disturbed. But yes, I've done grids for things like Mary Magdalene's birthday. I took the whole kitchen table and just did a beautiful one. I've done that a couple different years for her birthday on July 22nd. So just, you know, whatever speaks to your heart. Just developing those practices, it can just be a lot of fun, and it's also very powerful, as you said.
Yeah, thank you for that. I do that with my crystal healing, but it's definitely changed over time. But yeah, with the regression, it's interesting.
Your name is Gemma. Gemstone.
That's right. Yeah, so it's all meant to be. All the signs are there. So yeah, it's funny, isn't it, how things work out?
It's profound.
Right. Well, I think I'm all out of.
Yes, we should wrap up because it's going to time us out here.
Yes, okay. Well, I've got a button here that says end broadcast. I did want to ask you about a bit of Mary Magdalene. I know personally, I mean, if I may mention, that when we did a session together, Wendy, that you had a connection to the Yeshua, to Jesus,
yes,
way back. And it's more than one connection, it does seem. So yeah, I was going to ask you about the Mary Magdalene, because it's you can channel that energy, can't you? You can channel that because you were part of it, weren't you? Really?
Exactly. It's my privilege to channel Mary Magdalene. Yes,
oh, wow.
And sometimes Yeshua comes through. Sometimes Mother Mary comes through. Mother Mary comes through pretty frequently in my sessions. She's just a master at healing the heart. So she'll often come in along with Kuan Yin and Mary Magdalene. They seem to come in as a as a group sometimes, or white calf buffalo woman too. It's the Native American Mary Magdalene, so to speak.
Wow. Yes. So yeah, and we already know you can't make this stuff up, so we've gone over that. I love that sentence, really. Yeah, excellent. Okay then, so shall we wrap it up? What I'll do, I'll leave all the links, the relevant links to your books below in the information section, and well, you can send me all the relevant links, so because I'm sure a lot of people are interested. And,
I'm interested. I'll be buying.
The
show one. So.
Okay, I can't wait.
Thank you both for everything that you do, and Chris for giving me my start. I'm just forever grateful, bowing to you for that.
Oh, it's a blessing and an honour from this end, certainly, because the session was, you know, when I mentioned about the energy when you were, because was it a cousin? Were you a cousin of? I don't know. You were connected to Jesus in one way, but I could feel, you know, you're in America, I'm in England, and all of a sudden I started getting, you know, my frequency, as it were, started raising. So I sort of asked you if you could sort of tune into that frequency yourself, and you actually confirmed what I was feeling, and that, for me, was incredible, really. Yeah, so thank you for these connections. Definitely,
absolutely,
it's amazing. All of my clients
you'll join us again as well, Wendy.
Yeah,
I'd be happy to.
That would be brilliant. We can have some more
fun.
That
would be awesome.
hopefully I've got more questions.
Well, we always have more wonderful client stories. I think those are just the
Oh,
bottom line is
yeah.
when people's lives improve. I just, nothing makes me happier. I think that's just what it's all about.
It's so fulfilling, yeah. Oh, completely.
We're very blessed
Absolutely.
to be part of it, I think.
Yes.
Yeah, it's almost have you found it a destiny thing as well? I mean, we've hit the hour now anyway. We're still rolling, and I'm still recording on this end. But would you? Because I get this strong feeling that there's a destiny. Yeah, it's like a destiny.
I
Everything.
agree.
It,
Some of the early readings that I was given by an astrologer and a numerologist and a psychic, I just was shaking my head and looking at them and saying, with all due respect, you've got the wrong gal. I'm not going to be a spiritual teacher. That's crazy. That was literally my response to the woman who told me about 5 years before I became a certified spiritual teacher. I did contact her and apologize and told her she was right.
oh wow.
So, yeah,
Yeah.
but it's just some of it. I mean, absolutely. It's our pre-life planning. It's what we've scripted. It's what we've planned. And when we can let go of what other people think and stop holding ourselves back, it just makes a tremendous difference that we can start to live our destiny that we're meant to live and serve as we're meant to serve.
Wow, that's so yes. Well, that's a confirmation for me because it's kind of bugging me. Each client I have, it's like we were meant to connect, without fail. Every single client.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely.
Beautiful. Okay, then. So then, thank you, Wendy, for such
Thank you, Wendy.
awesome.
So nice to
thank
meet
you.
you.
Awesome,
And thank
awesome.
you to all our lovely listeners and people who tuned in and will tune in. We're just so grateful that you're here on the path with us and that we get to connect.
Absolutely, totally.
Yeah, thank you, everyone.
Totally love it. Yes, thanks to everyone. Like I say, I'm going to be leaving the links down below, all the relevant links to the books and information. And we look forward to you tuning in next week. I mean, the next time we do a session, which I've got to mention. We can't milk it. But I've got to mention that one of my actual clients is coming on in our next session to sort of give an example or to show.
Oh, that'll be fun.
Yeah, how their life completely changed. I mean, it's another destiny moment again. Which I was honoured and privileged to sort of conduct their session for them and go journey with them into a past life. And he's going to let us know how he has progressed since that session, where he was kind of enlightened, and as we get rid of a lot of baggage so as we can move forward nicely and smoothly on into the future. And as you were mentioning earlier on, we can shed friends, family. They don't sort of totally fall away. They're there, but we get to see our work and what we are meant to be doing, which is important for the soul's evolution or balancing, rather than looking at it from a material perspective. But it was a completely amazing session. He had a couple with me actually, and this was one of the people that went into the future lifetime with the blurred out faces. So that is absolutely, it's going to be fascinating just to see what's happened from his perspective. So next,
yes, that'll be great.
Yeah, so the next session that we're going to be having him on, and he's going to be sharing his success since post session. And well, thanks again, Wendy. We look forward to chatting again and having some more fun, and we will definitely be looking forward to your book.
Well, thank you so much.
Yeah, I can't wait.
See you again in the new earth.
I think we're shifting, aren't we? We're shifting. I think we're there, actually.
Absolutely.
Things like this don't happen in the old earth, do they? All right then, so but thanks for the blessing, and we bid you all a very good day, and with Gemma it's good night, isn't it? So yeah.
Good night.
Bye now.
Thanks again.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Bye. Over and out.